on this computer. So, hi. In today's connecting conversations, we've got AJ here who works at Sony Music, and so I kind of just want to ease into the interview with a simple introduction. Can you just tell us your title, what it means, and then a bit of background on your work there so far?
Yep. Also, you can call me Alana.
Oh, okay.
So I work for Sony Music, and I work for a smaller label that has actually just joined with a bigger label. The smaller label is Same Plate, and we literally started 3 years ago. And then in April of 2020, we became part of the bigger label, which is RCA, which is also under the Sony Corp. My title, believe, I actually don't 100% know. I believe it's like marketing and creative development. And basically what that entails is a lot of things. But so when I first started, I was really just trying to sign artists because as we were a new label, we had 0 artists, which means that we had no work to do because we're not doing anything. Yeah. So I would say for the first like 6 or 7 months, me and my boss, Jonathan Master, who's the president of the label, sought out to sign, I think we had a goal of 15 artists or 12 artists. And then once we were finished, we had 18 artists. So really we shot up there. And then through signing our artists, since we were sort of a new, I want to say like startup type label, we started realizing what the needs were for the label and for the artists. And one of those needs that I sort of filled was once we signed these artists, who are like completely new to the game. They're not like millions and millions of streams. Some of them had 1 song out, but we believed in them and we believed in what they were bringing to the table already before like joining a label. So we saw one of their biggest needs was like, are they defining their brand? And if so, how are they telling that through their social media, through the content that they create, through their messaging of songs? So I became a little bit more of like a project manager, but I guess I would say my end goal is to protect the label, whereas like an artist's end goal would be to protect the artist. And now I sort of do the same thing. I project manage most of our artists, but I also help with a lot of the marketing efforts. So taking those brand initiatives that we realize these artists need and bringing that to like a larger scale. If we're doing like an activation, a lifestyle activation, whether it be in person or now, most of them obviously are over the web, unfortunately. So yeah, I would say I started in more of the like talent recruitment, and then that sort of led me into marketing. And I actually had no clue what marketing was really when I first started. I never saw myself in that field. I also think that I thought that field was a little bit less sexy than the A&R side, which is what I was doing and so used to. But now that's what I do.
Cool. Okay, so I'm going to ask a few backtracking questions just to put a microscope on certain parts of that for the students listening. Can you talk about what it means to sign an artist in terms of like, where do you find them? How do you recruit them? What's that like wooing process like?
So now I think it used to be that you would like go to a million shows and hope that one of the shows you went to, there was like this shining star, and then you would go to them after the show and be like, I work for this label, let's set up a meeting. It's not really like that anymore, although sometimes it is. a lot of what I was doing was following producers that I really liked on SoundCloud, and then like sort of stalking them and seeing who they were following artist wise, or who they were bringing to like be on songs. And I would find out the producers actually on Spotify, because Spotify, you can look at, it says like song credits. So I would look at who produced the song, then find that producer on SoundCloud, and then stalk every single person that producer followed. And then I would send these like cold call emails to the artists that were like so not professional. I think my subject line was literally like, I really fuck with you. Mm-hmm. Let's talk. Like, what are your next moves? And it actually worked. I would say probably because I wasn't as like a label suit, as they call them, from Sony reaching out. Like I really just wanted to know what their next moves were, where they were living, who they were. And a big part of like these initial signing conversations were like, and I've learned this down the line going through all of these conversations, but when you eventually like sign an artist, you're really like, it's kind of like getting into bed with them. Like you have to know everything about their life, because at one point or another it's gonna come up. And if I don't like you as a person, or like you through the conversation that we're having, that's like an initial 30 minutes or whatnot, I probably don't want to spend every single day on a call with you talking about your music and the like the itty gritty, oh, can you post this, or like what your goals are and stuff like that. So I would say honestly a lot of the first conversation is like, is this someone that we vibe with as a team? Obviously it's someone that I think is talented because we're reaching out. I didn't really do calls where it was just numbers based, meaning that like they were doing really well streaming wise, but I didn't think that they were talented, because there are a lot of artists like that. For us, it was really like, even if the numbers aren't there, do they have a brand or something? And I say brand, but like, do they have a point of view on who they are, how they represent themselves? Does their music also line up with these brand points of views? Like, so yeah, I mean, we would do the first call. I would do the first call, and then I would sort of like bring it to my boss, Jonathan. And at this point, he like very much trusted my ear. So, and if I liked them from the first call, then John would be like, okay, let's set up a bigger call. And then we would sort of talk about what our label did and where we think that we could serve them, because just as it is a call us trying to sign them, like some of these artists are being hit from like many labels, so you need to like sort of sell yourself too and make it so they want to do business with you. And then from there we would go over like some deal points, like what money would look like. And then if that sort of looked aligned, then we would bring them in to meet our entire team. And like our team at the time was only 6 people. So it really had to be that all 6 people wanted to work on whatever the artist was and the project, because that was like our life basically, trying to serve these artists. So if we didn't all really like the artist, it just doesn't, like, you always fight for someone who you like. And if you don't really like the person, you're not really going to fight for them as hard.
Right. I remember years ago when I went on internship, I interned at a casting agency in Boston. In the interview, they said, they're like, we're looking for someone we can spend 40 hours a week with. I can teach you how to do anything, but we have like 300 square feet to share 40 hours a week. And it sounds similar here. You might as well surround yourself with people you want to spend time with, and then work out the rest, as long as they've got the talent and stuff you're looking for.
Yeah, and that was even like the same for our initial team. Like we were 6 people. who most of us didn't know each other, and then got thrown into this world where now we spend every second together. We are looking out for these artists to sign to really help like make their careers and like turn these aspirations that they have into actual like tangible things that can happen. So we sort of, I hate saying this, but we sort of had to become like this little family because we just spent so much time together.
Yeah, it's inevitable. You have to. Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
once you've kind of signed artists, then you talked about next was your project management portion, which seems like the larger portion of your job these days.
Mm-hmm.
You describe a little bit more like what does project management mean? What kind of projects are you working for? What are like the daily or weekly things that go along with that?
So I would say project management is being able to set goals for your artist. Let's say my artist comes in and they have a body of work that they want to create an album for. Like this body of work is their album. We then set goals for this album. We want to make 4 videos from it. Actually, let me backtrack a little bit. So we have the artist come in, we know what their body of work is, and we need to set like brand goals. And I look at it as every person has like these tent poles. For me, I'm from New York. I would say being like raised in New York is a huge tent pole for me. And how do I break that tent pole up into things, into like smaller pieces? So is that I went to public school. What forms of content can I create, whether that be like long form YouTube videos, short form 30-second clips for Instagram, Twitter, and how do I find the communities within that smaller temple? Mm-hmm. Once we've like figured out, a lot of the times like the temples are fashion, if they're into a certain like sports team, if they like maybe religion is one of them and that's something that they're actually like really passionate about. It's finding these smaller communities to serve, and how do you make those smaller communities fans of the artist to then bring along this artist journey. Once we've like figured out those temples, and that's sort of what I did as like the product management side, then I would go to the different departments, like the digital, like our digital guy, his name is Andrew, and be like, Andrew, he is a super Knicks fan. How do we take these pieces of content that we want to create and serve those communities? Andrew would probably bring in like micro and macro influencers, meaning like influencers that have less than 10,000 followers and influencers that have 150,000 followers and more, and try to figure out how to seed that content that we created with this Knicks idea in mind to those communities. And then I think like on an overall basis, it's like really like managing the expectations for each of these departments, whether it's the digital side, PR, and we know like what our top goals are to hit for publications, and even like how do we get Nadeska from Everyday Struggle to know who our artist is. And so do we need to send care packages to Nadeska, knowing that we probably won't get on Everyday Struggle because our artist hasn't gotten to that level yet, but we know that she's someone that we have to hit in order to like climb these steps to get there. So it's managing like those projects and those goals, as well as, which is kind of the difficult part, managing the artist relation side. And that is like really hard because artists are really crazy. Yeah. Even like the best ones, I'm just like, oh my God. But I mean, I feel like you have to be somewhat crazy to be able to like put yourself on a platform for the entire world to judge you.
And if that like art part of your brain is turned on, it's, there's a lot there.
I always said like I would love to like take an MRI or like a CAT scan of like an artist and then like someone who's not an artist and just see how their mind works and just like how did you get to that? But it's like figuring out how like the different languages that artists and their team speak. And I say that because like I have artists who I have to spend 3 hours on the phone with to circle around one idea, but I know that we won't be able to get that idea pushed forward unless they in their head talk through the entire thing. Then I have other artists then I have other artists who I barely speak to and just like send me what they want to do ideas wise. So it's like learning those different languages and managing expectations between what the artist team wants to do, what the label wants to do, and sort of figuring out a way to get the artist team to think that they thought of the ideas that the label team has actually thought of.
Yeah, I feel like that exists a little bit in every kind of business.
100%.
Even at the college, sometimes I sit in meetings and I'm just, how can I get everybody on this? Like, what's the hustle here?
Yep.
So that's interesting. Okay. Okay, so my next question will be because you said it's called Same Plate. Is that the record you're on? Okay. So what do you think, at least for you, in your opinion or experience, is the appeal of working for a smaller label versus the bigger parent company?
So it's interesting because I've now had both experiences.
Yeah.
So I would say starting at Same Plate, our budgets were way, way, way lower than anything people would even like think of for like a bigger label. Like our video budgets were maybe $5,000, whereas a regular video budget is probably 60K and up. I will say though, one of my biggest things, I guess, within the music industry is that budgets are going down and people are realizing that you don't really need to spend a shit ton of money on stuff, especially videos, because the ROI, the return of like on their interest is investment, sorry, is it's not money. Like you're not making that money from YouTube. It's really like public perception and figuring out what forms of content you can create for that. But that being said, our budgets were way less, but because of that, we were sort of able to do whatever the hell we wanted to do. Like we had this one project where we worked with Sony Music U, which is a university program through Sony that basically creates these marketing teams around different college campuses in the US. And the labels within Sony are able to tap into those reps, which are college kids at each campus, for marketing initiatives within their campuses. So one of the projects that we did was they basically brought in all the reps to New York, and each label had like 20 minutes to talk to, or no, each label had an hour to talk to these reps about like what they do and basically like give them a whole spiel. Because we were like this new label that nobody really cared about within the building, I think they gave us like 10 minutes to talk to the kids. And we were like, fuck that. So we literally, I was like, let's throw a college party for them. Like,
yeah,
let's
what they are anyway.
Yeah, let's do something that's different. And basically within our 10-minute spiel, we were like, fuck that, we're throwing a party tomorrow night, here are the deets, and let's just hang out. The next night we rented this house in New York, and mind you, we did this entire party for like 3K, and every other label spent like I think 25 or 30K on their 20 minutes because they like got them concert tickets or something, which is kind of cool, whatever. But we spent like 3K to throw this party, and we had like our producers that we knew, we had the artists that we had signed come through, we had a sick DJ, and we got to know these kids. And the only reason we were able to do any of this is because we sort of like flew under the radar, and everyone was like, all right, whatever, this small little label is going to do what they want to do.
Cool.
I would say we also, like, starting with a small label, we were working with much newer artists, and what you call, I think in the industry, they call them like green. Yep. And we really sort of became family with these artists because we were starting with these artists, like some of them had one song out, and we had massive goals for these artists. The artists themselves had massive goals. So it was this like really cool relationship that we got to build that is not built at bigger labels, because you're working with such a bigger team, and it's, I don't know, I think that the family aspect is a little bit taken out, because these artists sort of just walk into it thinking that now there's this huge label that's like just going to throw them money, and it's like, it's much sexier. But so we got really great relationships. And then when Same Plate formed into RCA, our budgets went up. Some of our artists went through to RCA, and I realized that there's so much more red tape, and like we have to follow so many more rules, and we can't just on the fly shoot a video with like no insurance, or we can't like not blur logos in a video, which then costs $10,000 more to add to the video. Right. So I feel like we were like the rebels, and now we like can't really be
now
the
you're
rebel.
The man again.
Yeah, I'm like
bummer.
Sad.
I think that's really cool though, for students to even think about, like, you don't have to aim for the huge big thing because of the personalization and freedom to just be yourself. And I would think that for an artist too, the ability to work with a smaller label and maintain like who you think you are and who you want to project is really cool.
I think also the cool thing, especially like even if you're not attached to a label, is learning that like things don't have to cost a lot of money. Right. Like if you have someone who you believe in and you have a content plan that you believe in, like especially nowadays, you can film everything off of your phone. You can run and gun shoots. You don't have to think that you need these big names or big labels to come in and like sort of like give you that pass. Like you can really do it yourself as long as you know what the point of view is and you know who your audience is and who like really fucks with you as an artist.
Cool. Okay. So we're about 20 minutes in. So in the last little bit, I'm going to go back in time a little bit and ask kind of like, what were your first 1 to 2 entry jobs, or did you go to school for this or just start working? What did it look like when you were entering the field?
So I did not go to school for this. I do not think that you have to go to school for it. My first job, I worked in fashion beforehand, which is definitely like synonymous with music. And I like interned in fashion before that. And the place that I worked at was called Milk Studios, and I would throw these underground parties at Milk Studios where I would just like bring rappers to do shows because these dudes were my friends. And I was like, nah, this is a cool look. Like, please just give me the place for a night. Like, I'll bring people. So that's like sort of how I made my way into music. But my first job, I actually DM'd what was my first boss on Instagram, and like I had looked that he was I think he was like the VP of A&R at Atlantic Records at the time, and I DM'd him and was like, yo, how do I take your job? And he hit me back like, I've never gotten this type of message before, but come meet me tomorrow. Like I fly back in tomorrow. Let's meet the next day. I went and met with him. We talked for like 3 hours about music, and I was like very opinionated. I was like probably way too opinionated for my own good at the time. But he saw that like it was definitely something that I was going to do, whether he was going to help me do it or not. I wanted to put artists in a position to win. So he hired me right then and there. I started working the next day, and I was with him for almost 2 years. And then while I was like part of this much bigger Atlantic Records label, I was realizing that like all of the artists that I actually cared about never would make sense for this big label, because they never would get they would get what we call shelved, because they weren't making the money, they weren't getting the numbers on streams that like the big artists were making. So while I was there, I sort of like made friends with this guy, Jonathan, who would like come into my boss's office all the time, and they would just like talk about artists and I would talk about artists, because I basically worked out of my boss's office. Like I would sit on the little countertop and like, I don't know.
You're gonna be a part of this.
Yeah, like you were coming to invite me to a meeting, I was gonna be sitting there regardless. But so we would talk, and then Jonathan basically was like, yo, I just got offered a label at Sony. It's brand new. It's very startup. Come over. I met with John, and like first day was like, here are 10 artists that I think we should sign. And it was just because I was like talking to all these people along the way about what I wanted to do and what wasn't there for me, that when the opportunity presented itself, he was like, no, this is exactly what we need.
Cool. Okay. I think that's kind of going to be the theme of a lot of these really media focused interviews that I'm doing, is the networking part of it. One of the videos that'll be upcoming for these students that I filmed earlier is somebody who owns a YouTube channel, and he has the YouTube channel because he worked at MTV, because he submitted some random application online and then met a guy at a conference, like a Comic Con kind of thing one day, right? And I think we're gonna find that I have a radio show host that I'm talking to who worked in another area of the department and then just auditioned and got it, and now she has a morning show. And I think that networking is a part of it. So I guess my last question,
definitely all networking, which is why you can't burn any bridges.
Yeah,
because
so that's
literally
so,
every single person knows everyone.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing that the students understand about this field. So we are all in central Massachusetts. Like the jobs, if they want in these fields, are not here. That's not the reality. And so I guess to wrap this up, I would ask, like, what do you recommend these students do to get out of their comfort zone now? Where should they be thinking about going, and where should they be thinking about just visiting or looking at, so they can figure this out better?
So I actually don't think that you have to start by moving somewhere. I think because that we're in this day and age, one, everyone is working from home regardless at this point. And I honestly think that's going to happen for a while, because especially like my company has realized that we don't all need to be in the office. Like you can live in Connecticut and still be part of meetings as a team. So I would say figure out like what at all you're interested in, and figure out how to like put yourselves in those rooms. If it's something, how do I say this? Also, I would say probably try to become a big fish in your pond, because for example, like we are doing these like marketing initiatives with kids from around the world. And we found these kids, I think we found them on Twitter. And basically we're like, we have X amount of campaigns going on for X amount of artists. Can you help us find kids in your area and in your community that you know, and basically like target them for ads and stuff? I also would say that you can reach out to anyone now. That like I literally reached out to someone on Instagram and DM them like it was my fucking LinkedIn. Like I don't even know that I have a LinkedIn.
You don't. I looked.
Yeah, I think that's also really bad advice. Probably you should have a LinkedIn. But I think just like figure out what you want to do, whether that's like if you want to be in video production and like you're interested in music, but you want to help make videos. Find out who the artists are in your town and just start making videos with them. Like you don't also have to like reach for the top gun of a company and like shoot your shot with them. Obviously shoot it, you might as well. But like you can also grow with people at your level. If it's something that you want to, if you want to be in PR, figure out how to get artists like articles and stuff within your community, in your neighborhood, in your city. And you could be like, oh, hey, I hear that X artist is dropping a single tomorrow. I know someone at this publication in my community. Can we write an article about X artist? And that allows you to start a conversation with X artist's team. And those conversations, as long as you have something to give, people are going to want to take. And if you give enough, then people are going to see your name and they're going to want to know more from you. Like, how else can you help them?
Mm-hmm. Cool. Awesome.
I don't know if that answered that.
It did. No, I think it's important for these students to realize like you can just start doing this now, right? Like they have the benefit of being at the Mount, which means they can rent equipment if they don't have it. They can use our locations, they can use our sound room, but they don't have to wait till they graduate to get to work. And if they do wait till they graduate, they've just lost 2 years. Where they could have been doing cool stuff in better.
100%, especially since you're on a campus, like you literally have a built-in community there. Right. Like I don't have that community. I can't like send an email to, I mean, I can, but I don't think my friends will want that email. But like I can't send an email to an entire class that I already have their email list and be like, oh, check this out. That's so useful. So like if you can do things within your own campus and your own community that you have, then 100% take advantage of it. Even if you're like part of what are they called? Like clubs?
Yeah.
Like if you're part of a club, you have that community and you have the information of everyone in that community.
Right. And the other thing for these students to know too, I would say is like, if we don't have that club, if we don't have like a music club or something, you can make it and we'll give you money for it.
And then you're even more lit because then you can reach out to a label and be like, yo, I started this club at my school because they weren't doing X, Y, and Z. And now they are, which to someone on like the HR label side is like, oh, hell yeah, this person takes initiative. Right. And like, I think that's the biggest thing that like, even when we're looking to hire people, it's like, what are you doing without being told that you have to do something? Like, I don't want to tell you that you need to do 10 tasks a day. Come to me and be like, oh, I realize that this is missing and I'm doing blank to fill in those blanks.
Yeah, cool. I think that's a really nice stopping point. I'm going to say it again, like, for these students to consider, what can you do without somebody telling you have to do it? Because that's what you want to turn into your career anyway. If you like something so much that you're going to do it without somebody making it an assignment, then that's what you should be doing. Cool. I think it's a really good stopping place. Thank you.
Thank you.